Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be doing something today that's obviously highly requested. I got a lot of my subscribers from doing these videos, and it has been probably somewhere around a year since I have done my last case video, but I finally did some research and put together a video for you guys. Today's case is actually on a man named Lars Mittank, or Mittank. I've most commonly heard it pronounced Mittank, so that's going to be how I say it in this video, but I'm not quite sure. This was actually one of the first videos that I remember watching, was some of the security footage that I'm going to include in this video for you guys, but I didn't know the full story at the time. So once I got older, I actually researched into this case, and it's just one of the most bizarre cases that I have seen so far, and so I knew that I wanted to put it on my channel and spread the word for you guys. It's also fairly recent. Over the last couple of years, this case is not very old. It's just one of the weirdest, strangest cases that I've seen, and it just raises so many questions. Also, here's just a quick reminder to read my disclaimer. I always put it in my case videos in the description box, so without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. There's a lot of conspiracy around this case, and some of the facts are kind of foggy, so this is just what I was able to gather for myself. So, Lars Mittank was a healthy 28-year-old who worked at a power plant, and he was from northwest Germany. He and some of his friends decided to plan a guy's trip to the Golden Sands in Bulgaria. They landed there on June 30th of 2014, and they were planning to come back on July 7th. So the trip seemed to go as normal. There was no odd behavior on Lars's behalf until the last couple of days. Everybody was just kind of having fun. But the last few days, Lars did get into a few altercations. On July 6th, Lars and some of his friends decided to go to a local bar where they watched the World Cup soccer game, and it was reported that at this bar, Lars got into some sort of argument with another customer that was there, and it kind of just escalated into an actual physical fight where Lars got hit in the head so hard that he had to go to the hospital, and when doctors examined him, they found that he had a ruptured eardrum. The doctors gave him some medication and sent him on his way, but apparently that same night, just a little bit later, he and his friends went back out on the town, and they actually went to a McDonald's where they wanted to get some food. Lars stated that he was not hungry, so he just waited outside for them while they went in and got food, which is already just kind of bizarre. I don't know why you would wait outside in a place that you don't know. At the least, you typically would go in with your friends, so this is kind of where the odd behavior starts. So his friends went in to get food, and when they came back out, Lars was nowhere to be found. I don't know what they did or did not do in regards to finding him, but they were unsuccessful. Luckily, Lars showed up the next morning on July 7th. When he got back, obviously his friends were worried, trying to figure out where he was, and he claimed that he got into another fight. He claimed that the same men who attacked him the first time had, quote, hired some Russians to come take care of him. Lars and his friends were scheduled to fly back home on July 7th, although to my knowledge it's rare that any doctor would recommend or allow someone with an ear injury that serious to fly. I can imagine that it would be extremely painful. So I'm not sure how the discussion with his doctor actually played out, but either way, Lars decided to stay back that day and just tried to send the rest of his friends home, and everybody just kind of assumed that was because of his ear. So of course his friends felt bad about it. They were pretty hesitant to just leave them there by himself. I don't really know how he convinced them to go, but he did, and they all just left and Lars was alone. So later that night, Lars went to check into a different hotel called Color, and I've heard that this hotel is actually in a pretty sketchy part of town. From what I've seen, he was pretty close with his mom, so once he got to the hotel, he called her to let her know that he was safe, but she said that he was acting extremely bizarre when he was on the phone, saying that he did not feel safe and that something was wrong. He said that the men he got into a fight with earlier were following him. He also asked her to cancel all of his credit cards and said that he had pills on him and that these men were after him to get these pills. Obviously, this behavior has his mom worried at this point, and clearly he wants to leave. He's not comfortable, he's really nervous, so she ends up booking him a flight for the next day, July 8th. It was also later reported by staff members at this hotel that they noticed extremely weird behavior from him as well. They said when he was checking in, he seemed very nervous, and someone even said that around 1 a.m. he actually left the hotel for about an hour. Nobody had any idea where he went. I think to this day we still don't know. The next day, Lars planned to go back home as scheduled. He ended up calling a taxi to take him to the airport, and once he arrived there, he sent his mom a text to let her know that he made it safely. On the security footage, you can see him entering the airport with a yellow shirt carrying all of his luggage. He was seen having a brief discussion with a woman before he went into the medical center inside the airport, so it's assumed that he was asking for directions possibly to where this medical center was. His mom wanted to have his ear looked at one more time before he flew out just to double check that everything would be okay. I mean, as far as we can tell from these videos, he doesn't seem to be acting strange. He looks pretty normal. He doesn't seem nervous or off about anything. However, he was only in the medical center for about 45 minutes when a man wearing a construction worker outfit walked into the building. Once Lars saw this man, he once again became extremely uncomfortable and nervous and started mumbling to himself and said something along the lines of, "I don't want to die here, I have to get out of here." At that point, we can see him on the security cameras again, but this time he was running. You can see him running at full speed. He looks genuinely terrified. He doesn't have any of his belongings on him. He left everything at the airport. He was seen running out of the airport across the parking lot where he jumped a fence and ran off into the woods. And that was the last time he was ever seen. Later in 2015, a truck driver reported seeing him, but to my knowledge, nothing ever came from this tip, so we have to assume that it wasn't him. There's also been photos circulating the internet of homeless men that people think might be Lars, and once again, nothing has come from that. A while passed without any updates on Lars when police in Brazil found a man walking along a highway. He was described as very disheveled, he was dirty, his clothes were wrinkled, he wasn't wearing any shoes, he didn't seem to know where he was, he had no identification on him, no past, he wasn't really able to give them much information. Now, we do have this photo of him lying in a hospital bed, and as you can see, he looks identical to Lars. They look very, very similar. They had the same build, they had the same height, so people started spreading these photos around, really thinking that it was him. However, this man was later identified as a man named Anton, and he was reunited with his family. So unfortunately, it was not Lars, but they did discover that Anton had actually been missing for 5 years. As far as case details, that is all we have. That's all I have, that's all I was able to find, but of course, like always, we do have theories, and I'm going to go over those now. So the first theory is that Lars orchestrated all of this himself, all the way down to purposely getting in a fight in hopes to get an injury that would help him avoid his flight to start a new life, basically, which seems far-fetched, but it is really strange that he left all of his belongings at the airport, anything that attaches him to his identity, basically, his passport, his wallet, his bags, just everything that he brought with him, he left. Some people have also speculated that maybe it was the medication that made him sort of delusional, but to my knowledge, this medication just had, you know, your basic side effects, nausea, headaches, fever, but there haven't really been any sort of negative psychological effects. And even if there were, he had only been on this medication for about a day, so it's very, very unlikely that it would have taken an effect to that extreme. It's also possible that when he got in that bar fight, after being hit in the head, he got a TBI, or traumatic brain injury, that was somehow missed during his hospital visit. He had to have been hit pretty hard to rupture his eardrum, so I don't think that assuming that may have resulted in a TBI is too far off. and some effects of a TBI are memory loss, abnormal speech or language, loss of thinking ability, and emotional problems. Now the last theory is that Lars was forced to be a drug mule, which is common in certain touristy areas. This could possibly explain why he disappeared at that McDonald's and didn't show up until the next morning, although I do think it's strange that he was even allowed to go back to his friends, and the fact that he did but didn't say anything odd about anything like that. To our knowledge, he didn't even tell them where he was. I think he tried to say that it was another fight, which a lot of people think was a lie. So if this was actually the case, if he was forced to be a drug mule, why wouldn't you tell somebody about it? Why wouldn't you get help if you were back in the company of those that you trusted, the people that you came with? But at the same time, I guess it's possible that whoever forced him into it scared him into not talking as well. A common way to transport drugs is inside your body, so a lot of people think that if this were the case, he may have swallowed the drugs, which are usually sealed in some sort of bag, so he's not just ingesting all of these drugs. But it's possible that it could have opened inside of his body, which now would result in all of those drugs going through his system and causing the bizarre behavior. It's possible he could have overdosed and possibly died that way, which is incredibly sad, but it's also something you have to consider as a possibility just because this is so strange and we don't really know what happened. But it's also possible that maybe he just got too scared to go through with it and ran off. But I will add in that the taxi driver who took him to the airport actually reported that his eyes were very dilated, so that could kind of factor into the drug theory being a larger possibility. If it were to be an overdose, I don't think that he would have made it very far into the woods, and assuming that space has been thoroughly searched, I don't know why they wouldn't have found him if that were the case. I don't really know. I haven't really decided if there's one of these theories I'm leaning more towards. This is just such a bizarre case, and I really hope that they're able to give the family some peace. At this point, it's been like 5 years with just no answers and just the most bizarre things leading up to Lars just running off and never being seen again. If any of you have found anything different or anything that I missed, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. I always welcome discussion, but please remember to be respectful on these kinds of videos. These are real people that we're talking about, and you never know if one of their loved ones is going to see something like this, so I always make sure to clean up my comment section, and I don't want to have to block anybody from my channel. So let me know what you guys think down below. If you'd like to see more of these videos, go ahead and subscribe, share my channel. That's it for me today, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.